Welcome, Gary. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you.
Okay, for folks that don't know, I'm Perry Robinson. I'm RocketDocs CEO, and I'm one of the podcast hosts for Ground Control.
Yeah,
And this is Bryan, that's over one of my directions here.
one of the ways.
Yeah, Bryan's co-host. Bryan, say hello.
Hey, everybody. I'm Bryan again, back again. I talk to customers on a daily basis. My title is now fancily down here. So if you want to look me up on LinkedIn, I'm there. Looking forward to talking to Gary today.
All right, Gary. You and I met, I think, now a little over 3 years ago. Yeah.
Yep, three and a half. Yep.
And to be quite honest, this is the first time I've gotten to see an unblurred background of where you take your calls and work from. So remind me again, what'd you study in undergrad?
And so my degree is in mathematics,
Yeah,
arts, mathematics.
so mathematics, right? And this looks like a mathematician's math cave. Is that a pretty fair description?
Yeah, yep, that's pretty reasonable sort of statement. Yeah.
Yeah. But these days, you're not a professor at San Jose State teaching mathematics. You're doing something completely different, which I think is probably on the title below your name there, right? CTO, right? So how'd you go from math into the world of technology?
So basically, living in Silicon Valley, right? Everyone has some part, it seems, to play with high tech. And right after getting through college, I got a contract position at Apple, and doing quality assurance with Apple, and met some other fellow mathematicians who ended up being there. And so you just in high tech, you meet some super smart people and super eclectic, as again, my background probably kind of shows, which keeps things interesting, right? And so that's kind of right. And back then, we didn't really have computer science degrees, right? Your computer science degree was a math degree with some sort of computer science studies.
Yeah.
So my first study was Fortran.
The
So
1890s were a different. It was tough without the phones and the.
I didn't have punch cards, but it was a mainframe.
Yeah. So Apple, give or take, what year was this that you're doing that initial work out of under?
89 or so, somewhere around then.
Early days on the Apple side. What for the Silicon Valley natives and the ones that like to geek out, right? So different campuses, different points in time in Apple's lifespan. Where was this lifespan for Apple in that year?
This was, the Mac, right? I think Mac had recently made their big splash with the large colored versions that they were sending to all the colleges and stuff. For those who know the geography, right, Infinite Loop was the place to be. We were across the street from it because we weren't the people to be there. But this was well before the donut got out there in Cupertino.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah. And these days you haven't gotten that far away from Apple because you're married to someone who works at Apple, right?
Yep. My wife's been at Apple for about 5 years now. Yeah.
Yeah. So that circle, that infinite circle, is definitely
There you go.
all right. So so RocketDocs, right? I know how you kind of came into RocketDocs, but I don't think any of the other folks that are listening might have that story. So what brought you into RocketDocs and what made it interesting?
So RocketDocs was an interesting creature, right? It was in a space I didn't know much about, right? But, answering RFPs originally was the main focus. And, obviously RocketDocs has expanded beyond just RFPs, and, answering any sort of questionnaires. But it was an interesting sort of position because they were on the cusp of going from this older technology to this newer technology was coming on the horizon that was really making big splashes. Everyone, I'm sure, listening knows, right, with the impact of Gen AI and all of this new technology coming, it was a really interesting time to be on a company that had been around for 30 years and seeing how they can, transform with this new technology and kind of capitalize on their experience with all this new sort of almost green field, right? And we made some choices early on that we were excited about because, well, we weren't sure if they were going to be the right choices. But then, a year or so later, we saw other companies kind of following suit with this whole private AI sort of approach and, security first. It was really neat to just see that transformation.
A lot of changes. Yeah. And I think a lot of the experience that you'd built up in different companies along the way, really the common factor for you was going in and figuring out ways to make sure that the technology that was being delivered in a way that worked. Right?
I mean, right. Yeah, I've been fortunate enough in this valley to work on everything from slot machines to playing with viruses to, just everyday sort of, helping to get large data sets to work. And it's always been fun to try to figure out how can we do that better. Absolutely.
Very cool. One last kind of biographical question. So you have a twin brother, right? You already mentioned your wife. You've got diverse interests. I think that we might say, but what does one find Gary doing outside of his working hours? What's the thing that makes what do you find yourself enjoying the most, Gary, when you're not working?
I find myself turning to most often just tinkering, right? Again, we live in a time with such availability of technologies and with things like, microcontrollers, like Raspberry Pis, etc. There's just so many different ways you can put these different sort of Legos together and do some really cool things with, I've taken some of my son's toys that have RFID tags in them and use those to control lights, right? So put a little RFID reader in a sensor and, be able to turn on different color light effects because they put their Skylanders on a particular portal.
Yeah, and with a graduated senior now,
Yes.
right, going off to University of Chicago to go experience the cold for the first time, right? You're going to probably be doing a lot more tinkering, I'm guessing.
Have more free time to tinker. Yep. And
Yeah,
probably have to send them to Chicago. Yeah.
there you go. And one of the things I was alluding to as well is that you spend a little bit of time inside of a dojo.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've been teaching martial arts for 40 some odd years. And yeah, so I've teaching Kempo. Yep. And then also been known to teach fencing. I'm actually a maestro in fencing also.
Actually just a maestro in fencing also. And that's not just inside of the martial arts. We're talking about classical fencing like we see with the
Italian fencing.
And, yeah, the white pajamas. Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, I think background wise, like we've gotten to know a little bit about you. Let's find out what you think about work related things a little bit more. Bryan, let's see. This is the part where we can kind of turn the show towards seeing if we can stump Gary on topics.
Not hard. You can do it.
Gary, first, I think you got to give everybody some sort of, I guess, instructions on how to manage their time so well. You're fencing, you're doing like everybody I talk to is busy in the industry. Maybe you can shine some light on how to manage to be good at all these different things.
Give up sleep, right?
Give up
sleep. I mean, actually,
12 hours.
In all sincerity, right? The people I seem to find have the least amount of time are the ones who are retired. It's, if you have a busy schedule, you're forced to keep to a schedule.
Mm-hmm. That's true. Yeah.
Time management by Gary. Just be busier.
Just be busier. Another hobby.
More time will be created. Just don't
tinker
sleep.
more.
Color code your calendar.
That I bet is something that is very helpful. So if people aren't doing it, they should do that. So we have a new release coming out, Gary. A bunch of new features. How do you prioritize like the features that you're going to push? Because I know there's so many.
Yeah, nope. So one of the things we often try to do is we work closely with our customer success managers to see what common themes we're hearing from our customers, to help figure out one, what can give us the most bang for the buck, uh, and help the most people as best as possible. And the other thing too is we always try to put in some features that will lead us farther down the road, right? That may be addressing thoughts, concerns that customers just haven't even ran into yet. Um, but so it's a balancing act between that. I mean, there's keeping customers happy as much as possible during the day, but then also leading them to something new and exciting in the future.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you've seen stuff all the way from Apple in the 80s. You've watched the internet come around. You've watched, has anything been faster than AI?
You know what? When the internet first hit, we were thinking, God, this thing is going quick. This thing is really changing everything. And it was hard to imagine. And now AI's hit and it's just changing things even faster. And yeah, having seen something like this before, I hesitate to say it's hard to imagine anything going faster, but who knows, right? There is
computers.
Yeah, definitely. Just add different universes in there. That'll make it faster.
Yeah, space travel, which we also thought wasn't going to happen all that soon, but
we're there. Basically. So I saw we've got a few new features that I was pretty excited about that I know customers have been asking about. Simplify Excel. I also saw we have, I was actually giving a demo this morning and I saw 3 or 4 new features that got published last night. So do you want to give a quick rundown on some of the stuff that you're most excited about?
So you mentioned simplifying Excel. I mean, again, going back to listening to our customers and hearing some of the pain points they're running into. One of the common sort of pain points we were hearing is customers were doing these web portal sort of interfaces and would often download these Excels that would, give what the questions for the web portal were going to be. The thing that we were finding, which was odd, is that for really no great reason, the download of these Excel spreadsheets were complicating them for, no real reason, because the customers were just using them as guides to re-answer the actual web interface. And so one of the things we took approach to is to just simplify that, right? One of the guiding principles we often will use is if I give a human a questionnaire or an Excel spreadsheet and they can't figure out where to answer the questions, that's a problem. And so one of the things we do is help to make it easier for them to understand, okay, here's where the question and answers pairs will be. And it's much easier now for you to answer these web interfaces with this simplified form. And so, it wouldn't have occurred to us necessarily, but we heard our customers, and our customers are telling us that this was, a pain point. And it turned out to be several customers. So it was super exciting to see that come out. The other thing that is and exciting to see come out is the ability to mark questions from within Launchpad. One of the common sort of principles we've also tried to follow is let people work how they already naturally want to work. And with Launchpad, which, again, I'm sure a lot of our customers already know, is, a plug-in for Word. They're already in Word. And so it's a much more natural way for them to interact with the document they're having to fill out and say, hey, here's my document. Just look through these pages for me, look through these sections for me, and answer, find all the questions for me this way, right? I don't want to have to go through some other thing to do it. I'm already in this document. And this gave our customers a lot of flexibility because one, they can, work at their own pace, right? It's not quite as daunting. But two, they could also fine tune their answers by saying, okay, for this group of questions, I already know this is really related to product A, B, C. Let me really pull my knowledge base focused on that product. And so it solved a lot of problems for our customers pretty darn quickly. And probably the last big thing that came in with this release that we're kind of excited about is with SharePoint. one of our big concerns always at RocketDocs has been to be as secure as possible, be as being able to let your IT team trust us, so they don't get in your way to use the tool, they don't get in your way to do your job. And unfortunately, right, the IT teams, they're the ones who are responsible for making things secure, and so sometimes they're seen as blocking you. Well, we made it easier for them to feel comfortable with the security, and we be able to use the principle of least privileges, right? And so with the new SharePoint update, we give the IT team the ability to lock down even more what's shared on SharePoint with RocketDocs. And again, it makes the review process with the IT team go much faster, because as soon as they see what it is and hear what it does, the half-hour meeting goes down to about a 5-minute meeting. So that's always great.
Yeah. No, absolutely. And I know reminders was another thing that popped up. Like, I know that we skimmed over. There's a bunch of gems in this release, but I know
so much to it.
Mm-hmm.
So with reminders, absolutely. Thank you for reminding me. But the ability to be a lot more customizable on reminders. Right. One of the things we were hearing from customers is, I've got a month before the project's due. I want to remind my people every week. But as we get closer, we need to. All right, now I need to. That timeline's getting impacted. I need to up that. I'm starting to get nervous. The ability to automate those reminders really helps. And then, as you know, right, we curate your knowledge database. As things get out of date, people kind of, you've got all sorts of other things you're doing. Sometimes it's easy to forget that, I meant to do that knowledge database entry and I didn't do it yesterday. We also now give the ability to periodically remind people automatically when things are out of date. Again, everyone's busy. This is just a convenience for the RFP writers and the SMEs, so that they can just, that's in the background. Give me five seconds here. Yeah, that's right. That we're good, and move on. So, yeah.
Gary, can you talk about your days at Apple, right? Like a lot of companies, right? You can either add a lot of things or you can start to take things away. And I think sometimes there's not as much weight in things that you decide not to add or not put in. So here at RocketDocs, when you're getting requests from customers on one-off things, and you're also getting obviously a lot of requests for different types of things, how do you prioritize not implementing so much that the system gets confusing? Because it could be easy to get.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. No, right. There is this natural inclination, especially if you have an engineering mindset, of let me throw everything in there. Mm-hmm. And, because we believe people sincerely want and believe they need it. But to your point, absolutely, it becomes more and more, there's how many different ways can I do the same thing? Or, do I really need this one particular flavor of doing this? So what we try to do is try not to actually solve the one particular flavor, right? So the example I like to use is, we've got one customer who wants, their text to be blue, and we have another customer who wants their text to be purple. Well, really what they want is the ability to customize their text color. Right. And so whenever possible, as we get these requests, if we can generalize them and actually make something that's even more flexible, more powerful for the customer, that's really the right way to go, and that's usually what we try to do. Now, again, obviously, the complexity of giving a color picker versus just a blue green text is a little more involved, but it's more sophisticated, right? And again, with sophistication comes flexibility, and that gives you a little bit more power. So we try to generalize as much as possible.
Yeah, I think there's something to that, right? Making things simple and easy for people to use. Sometimes it reminds me of the Henry Ford quote, right? When people, if you ask people what they'd want, they'd say a faster horse, right? But they don't even know that a car is something that is an option. And you being a CTO, being at the forefront of tech, seeing kind of where things are going to go in the next couple of years, how do you put weight on what people think they want versus what they might want in a year versus 2 years versus 3 years? Who knows if we
Absolutely.
can predict that far?
Well, and nowadays, I mean, I think I might actually even change your time frame from 2 months to six
Yeah.
months to a year, because just how rapid things are happening. Absolutely. Um, part of it comes down to, there is the pain you're feeling today that someone may be feeling today. Can I solve that pain in a week, with the idea being that I can give you a much more powerful and long-term solution? Then I think, both parties would probably agree that waiting a week isn't a problem, right? And so we're constantly trying to balance, how long will it take to get to an even better solution? How long will it take to get to a solution that won't become obsolete also in the space of, 2 weeks? Um, and so that's really the big balancing act is, how long does it take to get to something meaningful? One of the concepts of Scrum is that every release you try to release meaningful software, right? With the idea being that you have these gradual steps to a more larger story. And so that's usually the approach we try to take is, you know, we want to get to this end goal. We need to figure out what are some meaningful steps we can take. And, hopefully those meaningful steps will also alleviate maybe some of these other requests that are coming in by, again, generalizing them and leading towards a long-term solution that will be even more valuable, even if you don't necessarily realize where that's going yet. Again, our analogy is absolutely right. A faster horse versus an actual car. Yep.
Yeah. People couldn't even envision a car, right, at some point. And I think that's how some people feel with AI. And like for somebody listening right now that is like, working a proposal job, like how would you recommend they like not be uneducated, or how do they find what's going on, right? Like in the course of their day-to-day lives, how do they make sure they don't fall behind?
Absolutely. That's a good question. So I'm a firm, again, as I said earlier, I in my spare time like to tinker. Tinkering is playing. I'm a firm believer in technology. You want to play with technology, right? There's so many different arenas now that AI is available to play with, and this helps with several things. One, it gets you so you're comfortable with AI, right? Frankly, I think playing is a super natural, important method for people to learn, because it makes us relaxed and more engaged with something, and it makes us less concerned by the AI, by dealing with AI if we're just playing with it. But it also gives us the ability to start exploring. And one of the things that I often have to do when I talk with customers is to discuss the current state of AI, especially generative AI, and then what's still science fiction, right? And playing with AI gives us that ability to kind of go, all right, I understand a little bit more. I understand what it can't do yet.
Mm-hmm.
And, and in some ways that's even more important, because while imagination is super important, and I do think imagining where AI is going is still, a little prognostication, I think understanding where it is also really important to, so we're not so concerned by it, right? I mean, it is something to pay attention to, but it's not something to fear, right? Just like, I, I think probably going back to cars, there was probably some fear of these giant metal machines running around that have no sort of survival instinct like a horse does. I mean, so I think absolutely playing with AI wherever you can, however you can, is important. And that's what I've been telling my son is, just play with it. Just see what it can do, see what you can imagine it doing.
What did it not do today? Well, at least
What
in the RP space.
what can't it do right now? So again, one of the guiding principles we've been doing is, if I can't give it to a human and they can't figure out what a question is asking, AI, it probably won't figure it out either. One of the biggest limitations, I'll say, as far as can't do, limitations I find with AI is it can be incredibly convincing, and incredibly wrong at the same time. It'll walk you down this rose path and then just makes a whole different sort of conclusion, right? Again, a very common one you'll hear nowadays is, I've got my car, it's dirty, I need to get it washed. The car wash is only down at the end of the block. Should I walk there or should I drive there?
I saw that one.
Right? It's a very common sort of logic question. And I can give it to a 7-year-old, and a 7-year-old will, be able to answer it, no problem. But that leap of, right, not saying, well, it's close enough to just walk, right, eludes the AI still. There's certain things that we still think are common sense. And I think that's really where common sense is where AI starts to break down. It is getting more and more clever. But it's still, yeah. The other place that AI breaks down a lot is math. Just because currently generative AIs are mostly predictive models, and they're just predicting what word comes next. And in math, it's just the nature of infinity is hard to guess what comes next.
Where should people pay most attention when they're looking over the work that an AI system has created for them? Where you said that it's good at making things look really good. It'll walk you down that primrose path.
Yeah.
We talk about human in the middle, but what should they actually be doing as the human in the middle?
So this is where it can become fairly taxing on an individual to truly follow this path and make sure that no logic leaps occur that are perpendicular to the direction you're going. So what I would look at usually is, my experience has been, it's usually that last leap that seems to be where it goes astray.
Mm-hmm.
Right. Good. And now go do that. And I'm not quite sure. There's this idea that the farther you get down a prediction,
mm-hmm.
the more uncertainty you've introduced through each of those sub-predictions that you've added. So it makes sense that last logical leap is where it would break down. So
mm-hmm.
what I often will do is I will start from the end of what its final assertion is, and then work backwards to see if it's working correctly or seems reasonable to me. So yeah.
To that one. So the last leap, right? So thinking about places where there are a lot of systems that are designed today, the first place they're supposed to look is inside of relevant information. But a lot of AI systems are connected to lots of other information, right? And is sometimes that last leap when it can't find a good answer inside of the relevant context and then goes to other sources.
So this is what's referred to as hallucinations in many cases that you're looking at. AI systems really, really, really want to answer your question, really want to solve your problem. And so oftentimes we'll just make up stuff so that they can get to the end and say, I've solved your problem for you. Absolutely. If as, for example, as we do in RocketDocs, right, we use a RAG-based approach, so we can say, hey, here's the information I want you to work off of. But the really important part from our side is we also tell the AI, here's the information to use. But if you don't have enough information, tell me. Don't make up an answer. Mm-hmm. We give the AI permission not to answer. And when we first implemented our Gen AI, we didn't have that. And we absolutely, we're seeing the AI trying its best to answer and making up stuff. But as soon as we said, hey, you know what? If you don't have the information, I understand, that's fine. Don't answer. And that's the same thing you would do with a junior RFP writer, right? You would tell a junior RFP writer, hey, here's our knowledge database, or here's our Excel spreadsheet, which is often what we hear. Try to answer this, but understand not everything's in there. So if you don't find it, just let me know and we'll add that. And that's the same permission we give to our AI. That, the other thing we often found that's even better is, you know what? You've already answered the question before. You already have knowledge in your knowledge database that's correct. Let's not even generate anything, right? Let's just use that. And that's really the nice thing is, Joe from accounting already said that was right. And so we don't even go to the generative response yet because it makes no sense, right? It's not, it's an unnecessary step at that.
That's back to that simplicity we were talking about, Gary. Sometimes like it's, when you really think about the problem, you're just trying to solve the problem, not introduce a bunch of features.
Exactly. Yeah. And if the actual problem is I want to answer correctly,
that's
we've done that in the past. We're good.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Without a review cycle, that'd be better. So,
yeah. Absolutely. Yeah.
So if I had to put a big theme on this release, it feels like keeping content healthy was the main driver behind it. Like, where do you see it going from here?
So absolutely. Yeah. Keeping content healthy is, is an often reoccurring theme for us, and curated and healthy. I think really where the future with that in mind is going to be, again, AI, right? More and more having some of this curation, some of this keeping it healthy, done through the AI. But the idea being not that the AI necessarily does it for you, but really the AI percolates up to you the things that need attention. There's very few, in talking with customers, very few things I've heard from customers where they want to be completely hands off and let the AI take care of it completely. What they really want is AI to help them know what to look for, what needs attention now, what needs attention soon, right? And so that's really where I see us going with this in the future.
So, Gary, first one for you. Favorite technology of all time? What is your favorite technology of all time?
Favorite technology of all time? Raspberry Pis.
Raspberry Pis. Why?
There's their real world interface to program to a computer, so I can put them around the house and have them monitor air quality, the garage doors open, other sorts of things. I like that real world interface.
Love it. Okay. Things that you would absolutely use Claude or ChatGPT for. What are the things that you think like those big solutions on the AI side are perfect for this?
You know what? I absolutely think they're good for brainstorming, right? For things where I want to bounce some ideas off, really quickly and have a conversational sort of approach. I absolutely think they're good for. Also, I mean, they are super useful for coding, right? It's having a junior coder that you can just say, hey, you know what? I don't want to write another program to read a CSV file.
Mm-hmm. Okay, flipping the question around, what would you never, ever, ever use Claude or ChatGPT for?
Anything I want to keep private.
Why?
So there's two concerns. One, I just don't know how they will use that data. And two, and to me, this is actually a more insidious and a deeper concern for me, is one day I talk about this thing that maybe I'm a little concerned about privacy, and then some other day, some other time, some other computer, I talk about this other thing that I really don't want known. And AIs are really good about connecting and joining information. And now maybe I've created some information I really don't want shared, right? And it's not like I lead an exciting life, but
That's
I do
debatable.
my privacy.
You're like a fencing champion and a tinkering with Raspberry Pis, and
Teaching martial arts, multiple
it's pretty exciting to me. You're modest.
Doesn't sleep.
Let the AI connect all those dots and see what happens. Yes.
Shaboomy.
So rapid fire question from me. Gary, why'd you pick a RAG model versus any other model?
It was the cutting edge for reducing hallucinations. And I still think it's cutting edge for reducing hallucination.
Do you think teams are thinking about the fact that maybe they're replacing their efficiency with AI, but they're actually just replacing the fact that they're finding questions now with reviewing more information? And then, like, what are some of the problems that you think people run into using AI like Claude or OpenAI?
Again, I think that double checking things is probably the biggest problem they run into when dealing with these generally AIs. And right? And then also dealing with things that are, qualitatively the same, even if they just changes the words a little bit. And now I've got to spend the mental energy to say, are these two sentences equivalent or not? Right. So there is a lot of mental energy that's going into those sorts of things.
Professional skills wise, like for an average worker person right now, just trying to get better at their job and, be relevant in the next 5 years, what skills do you think they should be focused on from the technical side?
You cannot avoid having the skill of knowing how to write prompts. Start dealing with, AI in general.
Where do you feel like they go to find out how to write a good prompt, and what goes into a good prompt? Because I think people might not fully understand what you mean by that.
Nowadays, I mean, there's so many YouTube videos that I think that's often my first go-to is, what, I've heard about this new thing. Let me go see if there's anyone, and I've never had something that I couldn't find a YouTube video on. And those are often, type it along while they're doing it. Absolutely. Yeah. That's probably the easiest way nowadays.
Earlier you referenced like playing, so that seems like the best way to go about it. Go learn about it and then try to actually put it to use, actually make something or prompt on your own and try to get it to do something that you want.
The YouTube is just to let you learn the instructions on how to play the game. And then, yeah, absolutely. Just play the game.
Go play. Yeah.
I think that's Gary's takeaway from this one. Go play, go tinker, go figure out new cool ways to make things work.
And figure out how to break it. That's always fun too.
Break it, but not in customer environments.
See what the limits are. That's right. Trying to break things is how you figure out limits.
Yeah. Gary, thank you for joining us today. We appreciate having you on Ground Control, and we're excited to see when you build a little miniature rocket for the next time that we have you on the podcast so we can see the rocket ship taking off.
Thank you. My pleasure. It's fun chatting.
Yeah.